Alright people, what's going on? Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another video for you guys today. Before we begin today's video, please make sure to hit this video with a like. You guys have been doing a fantastic job with liking the videos, and I'm very grateful for that, so please keep it up. Also, make sure to subscribe to yours truly if you want to get more Dallas Cowboys content from me going forward. Also, hit the notification bell to be notified when I go live or post new content. About 96% of you guys watching aren't subscribed, and about 20% of you guys that are watching and subscribed didn't hit the notification bell, so please make sure to do that. So, with all that crap out of the way, I'm going to try something different when it comes to just the videos I talk about and stuff like that. So, we're going to be looking at like Cowboys lore and just talking about previous teams and how my honest opinion is on those teams. So, today we're talking about the best teams of the 21st century in terms of the Cowboys to not win a championship, okay? Who was the closest to getting to that championship, basically having that form of discussion. Now, if this is well received by you guys in terms of, you know, the feedback and stuff like that, I'll continue stuff like this, but if it isn't, I don't know. But with that being said, I just want us to try and have some form of discussion. I know it's kind of becoming more of a quiet all season as stuff hasn't been really happening. So, we're going to be talking about that today. So, let's first start off with the 2007 Dallas Cowboys. Now, before I get straight into this team, I want to add a couple things. Number one, I'm going to be looking at the roster as a whole in the sense of, like, my honest analysis of how I felt that team was, from the coaching staff, this, that, and the third, to the players, and just overall the climate of the league to determine, okay, if they had matched up with this team, I think they would have won here. So, that whole thing. So, I guess that can determine who you think is, in my opinion, the closest to have winning a Super Bowl in the 21st century. So, 2007, okay? The Dallas Cowboys of 2007 won 13 games. They won the division, and they lost in the first round of their first playoff game, I should say. They didn't lose in the first round. They lost in the second round, but they lost their first playoff game against the New York Giants. This team, one of the best Dallas Cowboys teams of all time. Look, they had 13 Pro Bowlers, 5 All-Pros, just an outright juggernaut of a team when they were hitting on all cylinders. This team had the capabilities of going 14-2, 15-1 if all things went well in terms of like them putting their foot on the gas pedal in certain games. But when you look at this team, okay, if you were to ask me if they had beaten the Giants, would they have gone to the Super Bowl and would they have won it? Okay, I do believe they would have gone to the Super Bowl. They would have faced the Green Bay Packers at home, which they had in that year beaten the crap out of until Aaron Rodgers came in and gave them a run for their money at the very end of the game. But I do believe the Cowboys would have beaten the Packers easily and gone on to face the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Now, the question would have become, do the Cowboys beat the Patriots? I honestly don't think so, just because there was a game where the Cowboys played the undefeated Patriots at the time, and then they had lost, and the Patriots went on to go undefeated. I do believe that the Cowboys, outside of the Giants, were the other best team to be well-equipped to face the Patriots, in my honest opinion. I just don't think, rather than it being the defensive slugfest we saw with the Giants and Patriots, I think it would have been more of a high-scoring affair. And who do I trust in that? Well, I don't know. I think they match up pretty well. I just think it ends up becoming like a 38-35 type of game, like a last-second field goal. I personally think the Cowboys would not have won that Super Bowl because I think the Patriots, having the experience that they had and the coaching staff and the team around them, I think they would have won that Super Bowl, if I'm being completely honest with you. You know, you can disagree with me. I honestly feel like we could beat the crap out of any team on the schedule any given Sunday, but the fact of the matter remains, if you're asking me as an unbiased, you know, in terms of analysis, that's what I would honestly say. So, I would argue that the 2007 Cowboys would have made the Super Bowl, but if they had gotten past the Giants, but I don't think they would have won the Super Bowl. Now, in 2009, okay, the Dallas Cowboys went 11-5. They won the NFC East, and they won a playoff game, and then lost against the Vikings in the divisional round. Now, this is the first season where the Cowboys played at AT&T Stadium. It was originally Cowboys Stadium before the naming rights came in. Now, I do honestly believe that this team had Super Bowl aspirations on it. honestly, this was probably the team we were wanting to see as the successor to the 2007 Dallas Cowboys in terms of the 2008 Cowboys. Like, this was the team we thought the 2008 Cowboys were going to be. A very good offense with a very good defense. Basically just good, an overall very well-studded roster. They had 9 Pro Bowlers, 5 All-Pros. Really damn good team if you ask me myself. So, I guess now the question is, would this team have gotten to the Super Bowl? So, they won a playoff game against the Eagles. They beat the Eagles in back-to-back weeks. So there's the fun in that. But you look at this team, right? They did not play the Vikings that year. They did play the Saints, though, who played in the NFC Championship game and ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. Now, I guess the biggest question is now, if they get past Minnesota, do they beat the Saints? Now, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think they give the Saints a run for their money. Because really, the Cowboys, honestly, they were doing their thing against the Saints. If you recall that upset they had when the Saints were 13-0 at that time, they really kind of shuttered the Saints for a bit, but then the Saints kind of woke back up, and that's what led them to go on their run to the Super Bowl. Now, the key thing here is that it really comes down to how the game begins, because I feel like, now, if you were a fan and you were watching the Cowboys at the time, you would know the Cowboys of 2009 were a team where if they got the lead, odds are they were going to win the game. So it really comes down to if the Cowboys jump on the Saints first, I really do think they could have won. Now, however, I will say, I think that the 2009 Cowboys, out of all of these teams, probably does not make it to the Super Bowl, because I think that the Saints would have probably beaten them. I'm not saying they would have beat the crap out of them, but I just think that when you look at this team, I think that it would have been it would have been like, if you've watched that 2009 NFC Championship game, it would have been close, but I really don't think the Cowboys would have come up victorious. I just think it was just like, hey, the Saints were a much better team that year, even though we beat them. And I think that, again, the Cowboys would have done well against them. I just don't feel like they would have gotten past the Saints, if I'm being completely honest with you. So 2019 was a really damn good team that could have made it to the NFC Championship game, but I think when they matched up against Minnesota, it was a bad matchup. That team was very damn good. I think it was just wrong place, wrong time for the Cowboys. They were a very hot team going into the playoffs, the Cowboys, okay? They looked like, hey, this team can really do some damage. And I remember the topic of conversation. I remember before that Minnesota game, people were talking about, oh, well, the Cowboys are one of the hottest teams in the league. This team could possibly make it to the Super Bowl if all things go right. They were a dark horse that year for some people. But if we're being completely honest, I really do think that the Cowboys would have ended, their season would have ended against New Orleans in that title game. Okay, so before we move on to the 2014 Dallas Cowboys, feel free in the comment section. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. You can say something else about these teams. How do you feel to how these teams would have fared in, these hypothetical situations? That's all we're up. That's what our conversation is about today. So, 2014 Dallas Cowboys. Now, 5 years later, Cowboys are back in the playoffs. They went 12-4, won the division. They won a playoff game and eventually lost in very controversial fashion to the Packers. If you don't know or you don't remember this team had 8 Pro Bowlers and it had 6 All-Pro members, okay? So this team, wow, this team was a very damn good team. I honestly feel if Tony Romo did not get injured and they would have played the Cardinals, I really do think this team would have gone 13-3, and I think they would have definitely gotten the first seed in that year, okay? Unfortunately, they lost too many games in conference, so it cost them the seeding. And because keep in mind, 12-4 is the best record in the NFL that year. Okay, no other team went better than 12-4, so the Cowboys were up there. This was probably, out of all of the other years, the widest open window that the Cowboys had to win a championship this year, because they've proven that they can beat the Seahawks. They had proven that they can very much contend with teams that were really good that year, and they had the offensive firepower and a defense that can make enough plays when necessary to get the job done. So what happens? So they beat the Lions, coming back from 20-7. Then they go on the road to face the Packers. The Packers end up beating them. The Cowboys are doing very well in that game, okay? There was mistakes that ended up happening that cost the Cowboys that game, but the Cowboys had control of that game. Like, as you watch this game, you could see that the Cowboys had the momentum. They were doing everything in their power to keep the Packers out of it. Then once halftime hit, the Packers got momentum back, and they ended up beating the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys were really damn close to beating the Packers. There were a couple key mistakes. We could throw in the Dez catch there, which was a huge factor, but DeMarco Murray fumbling, the inability to stop the Packers on third down, on the final sets of drives, just all of this, the overall, I think that's what really hurt me, was that the Cowboys had that game and they let it slip out of their hands. So let's say the Cowboys win this game and they go to Seattle. I really do think they would have beaten the crap out of Seattle. Some people might say, "Oh, that's ridiculous, Space Guy." Look, assuming that the Seahawks played the exact same way against the Cowboys, there is no damn way in hell, based on how that game would have gone, the Cowboys would have lost that game. I think they would have been up much considerably. They had the best running game in the NFL that year. They had one of the better passing offenses. They had the best version of Tony Romo at that point in time. Look, this team would have gotten past Seattle. I am, without a shadow of a doubt, I believe that. Now, they would face the Patriots in the Super Bowl that year, assuming they got past both those teams, the Packers and the Seahawks. Do I think the Cowboys of 2014 beat the Patriots in that Super Bowl? You could call me biased, but I really do think so. I think that the Cowboys would have won the Super Bowl in 2014 if all things went right. Why do I say this? Well, if you look at the Cowboys and how their offense was constructed, okay, they have a very powerful, dynamic power game in terms of running the ball, and also they have a passing game. And if you watch that Super Bowl versus the with the Patriots and Seahawks, really, if the Cowboys had look, the Cowboys were very capable of beating anybody that year. 2014. And I guess I'm spoiling it because this is my honest-to-God pick. I think the 2014 Dallas Cowboys were the closest team in terms of the perfect situation, number one. And number two, just the overall team itself. I think that, while this team wasn't as talented as some of the other teams that preceded them, I do think that this team had the perfect window to swoop in and get a championship that year. Had one of the best offenses in the league, a decent enough defense to get the job done, and considering that the teams they were going up against, they were easily capable of beating these teams. Don't let anyone twist you thinking that. I really do think 2014 was the closest the Cowboys ever got to winning a championship in terms of the 21st century in this drought so far. But with all this in mind, I do think that the Cowboys would have won against the Patriots that year. I think that you look at how the Patriots were handling that game. Tom Brady just didn't at first, he just didn't look good at all, if you recall. And it really, he picked it up at the end of the game and he brought the Patriots back. And it just, as I'm watching this game, I'm like, honestly, I think that the Cowboys could have done very much so, keeping the ball out of Tom Brady's hands, continuing to pad that lead. It's just that was their formula that year. It worked. No one could really stop it because of how well that team was playing. So yeah, there's my answer regarding that. Now let's move on to 2016. Now, in 2016, the Dallas Cowboys, one of the most historic seasons in Cowboys history. I mean, the longest winning streak in franchise history with 11 games. You have a situation where you have a rookie quarterback and running back duo, which tear the league apart. Go 13-3, win the NFC East, and you lose in the Packers in the divisional round. Now, here's the thing. The Cowboys could have tied the best comeback in franchise history when it comes to a playoff game with down 18, right? And the fact is, you watch this team, look, for me, the Cowboys of 2016 could, if they have beaten the Packers, I don't know if they would have been able to handle the Falcons that year. We didn't play the Falcons that year. But watching how the Falcons were on offense, they were a tough team to stop. That Cowboys, if you think the Cowboys giving up 34 points was bad, there's only no telling how much points the Falcons could have put up. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm being completely honest with you. I think that the Cowboys at best would have probably gotten to the NFC Championship game, and they would have probably gotten torched. Just because when you look at that defense and how things went out, the team didn't look good on defense. Like, it's just weird, and it's just the theme of these teams were like they were not prepared, or they just ran into a gauntlet that like just didn't bode well for them. And that's the biggest pet peeve for me is like when you look back and it's like, damn, this team really should have done a hell of a lot better. I'm shocked they didn't at least win one game. And I could feel you on that, you know. And I think that, yes, the Cowboys of 2016 were a very good team, but when you consider the teams in front of them, I don't know if they get past the Falcons, and I don't know if they get past the Patriots that year. I mean, assuming that the Patriots start off that Super Bowl as bad as they did against the Falcons, then maybe, but still. You know, and that's just my honest-to-God assessment. I think that out of the 4 teams we talk about, if you were basically telling me, okay, how would I rank these teams? I would say that I would put the 2016 Cowboys at 4, 2009, 2007, and 2014. And it just has to do with the ranking of... It's not the ranking of how I feel each... Because if we're talking about, like, the best team... Look, that's not what I'm getting at here. I'm ranking it based off of the climate of the league and the possibility of the team to win a championship that year. That's number 1. And number 2, it comes down to, does this team come together and overall is it good enough to get the job done? And yeah, obviously all these teams have the chance to do it. You know, they made the playoffs for a reason, and they were 10 plus wins for a reason. But the fact of the matter is out of all these teams, I still think the 2014 Dallas Cowboys were the best team, plus had the best situation of the league that year to go and win a championship. Now, I've gone on for long enough. I want to hear what you guys have to say. How do you feel about these, Super Bowl contending teams with the Cowboys? Which team do you think was the best of the 21st century that didn't win a championship out of the 4 that I mentioned? Or it could be something else. By all means, put that in the comment section below. I thank you guys so much for watching. Also, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all of that. And I will see you guys next time. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.